Please like and subscribe to our channel for more daily stories. My father's a complete jerk and not even gorgeous, so why he had the option to marry Lexi, a shocking model who's been on the front of Vogue and dated a few renowned football players. Well, we live in South America, and my father raked in boatloads of cash taking backhanders. No doubt he was a bad lawmaker who was giving government agreements to whoever offered the greatest incentive. That is the reason we lived in a huge house, despite the fact that his administration's compensation was under $50,000 each year. How do I have at least some idea of this? Well, my father let me know he even attempted to enlist me. He said I'd rake in boatloads of cash, yet I denied and let him know that a great many individuals were living in neediness as a result of degenerate legislators like him. Obviously he lashed out and hollered at me to be thankful for all that he'd purchased for me. I couldn't have cared less, however, and the genuine casualty was Lexi. At any rate, after she got hitched to my father, he mistreated her. He'd make her dress in uncovering servant ensembles and requested her to cook for him or clean the lounge. While he watched, he appeared to get removed from having control over her. Okay, perhaps you think Lexi merited it. I mean, she just wedded father for his cash, yet she generally appeared to be so miserable. One day I found Lexi crying. I asked what was off base, and she let me know my father had shouted at her for a really long time and said he'd throw her out on the off chance that she irritated him again. I said I was upset for how my father was treating her, yet unexpectedly she pushed me back, rode me, and began kissing me all once again. She murmured, "Show me how a genuine man treats a lady." I ought to have left, yet I was just 18. Having an exquisite model hit on me was the best thing that had at any point happened to me. As we were making out, I heard my father strolling towards the room. Lexi snickered and let me know I had lipstick all around my face. I overreacted and hopped behind the love seat to conceal. Father came in and sat close to Lexi, saying, "I have an excursion for work this end of the week. There will be a lot of safety officers around to watch out for you, and they'll tell me in the event that you attempt to go anyplace, I suggest you don't commit another error. Currently give me a kiss." Gracious, I needed to hurl. Was my father kissing a similar lady I'd made out with 2 minutes sooner net? However, after he left Lexi and I began kissing again, it was such a rush since I realized it was off base, and I never even held a young lady's hand, and presently I was making out with a supermodel. You'd have done likewise on the off chance that you were me. Obviously assuming my father figured out he would kill us, yet I was unable to keep my hands off Lexi. Our undertaking happened for quite a long time. At whatever point father went out, Lexi and I attached. Despite the fact that she was more established than me, we fell head over heels. I gave her the consideration and friendship my father wouldn't. However, at that point Lexi fell pregnant. There was no question I was the dad since it occurred during one of my father's excursions for work. Obviously we didn't tell my father. He thought the child was his, yet after my little girl Haley was conceived, my father turned out to be considered a greater amount of an ass. He told Lexi she was fat and taken steps to give Haley away, assuming that she kept shouting despite the fact that she was only a child. Lexi and I pondered taking off, however we didn't have the cash and my father would have found us. At any rate, the possible way we'd be free was if my father kicked the bucket or went to prison. So I concocted an arrangement. I told my father I'd adjusted my perspective on assisting with his agreements. He was so cheerful, he said he'd never been prouder of me. Over the course of the following couple of weeks, I went with him on conferences with different organizations. It was stunning the way in which open they were tied in with paying off my father and how much cash they planned to make. They could never have been so open, assuming that they'd realized that I'd established secret receivers in father's office. I was recording each word they said. Following a couple of months, I had sufficient proof to send my father to jail until the end of his life. In any case, I had a far better thought. I chose to coerce him. That was the hardest discussion of my life. I will always remember my father's face when I let him know, "She's not your kid," he expressed out loud. "Whatever," I said. "Haley, she's not yours. I moved Lexi pregnant while you were away on an excursion for work." My father chuckled. That is the best joke I've heard in some time yet. I just scowled at him and said, "Haley's mine. Lexi and I are leaving today and taking her with us. We won't allow our little girl to grow up around a beast." That is when father acknowledged I was coming clean. He pushed me in a difficult spot and growled, "You want to lay down with my better half and I'll just let you go." I pushed him back and said, "You treat your better half and my girl like workers, and we're not tolerating it. I have long periods of accounts which demonstrate you've been accepting hush money. In the event that something ought to happen to me or my family, one of my companions will send them to each and every writer in this country, as well as the police, and you'll go to jail until the end of your life." Father's face went red. He was so furious he poked a hole into the wall. Be that as it may, He realized he was unable to contact me an hour after the fact. Lexi, Haley and I went out, we took his number one vehicle and $50,000 and moved into a lodging. I thought we had a lot of cash, however we didn't. Lexi was accustomed to living in extravagance and she loathed the modest inn we remained in. After only 3 months she'd burned through the entirety of our cash. She let me know she was unable to endure this way and said she'd find another person if I was unable to give her in the beginning and end she needed. Yet how could I should do that? I didn't have some work. I was scarcely out of secondary school, so I returned to my father and requested $5 million. I realized we could manage the cost of it. He snickered in front of me and said, "Goodness, I realized you were very much as me. Didn't you say you needed to lawfully bring in your cash?" He was correct. Perhaps I wasn't any better compared to him, yet I didn't mind. I was unable to lose Lexi. I said, "I realize you have the cash, give it to me." My father answered, "I'll give it to you tomorrow around early afternoon. However, you'll need to guarantee me you'll at no point ever request cash in the future." I said, "Bargain." I guarantee. Wow, it had really worked. Father gave me the cash and I could purchase all that Lexi needed. Again we moved to a superior inn and we were glad for some time. However, over the course of the following couple of months I started to see the reason why Lexi had hitched my father. She was staggeringly shallow and just thought often about cash in spite of the fact that she was as yet the most sweltering lady. I realized we shared nothing practically speaking and she would not behave like a legitimate mother. One day we had a major battle. I told her she was dressing like a and I didn't need her going out with Haley, seeming as though that she got truly outraged and said, "Do you believe it's tomfoolery remaining in constantly with just a right amount of kid like you?" That evening I rested on the love seat and when I awakened the protected where we kept our cash was gone, as was Lexi. I was left with Haley, yet no cash to deal with her. I had no real option except to return to my father to get more cash. However, when I went to see him, he said, "You vowed not to request more cash." I said, "I don't mind. Lexi took everything from me. Simply give me $1 million, that will be enough for me. This truly is the last time I'll ask you for anything." He cautioned, "This will have results." I didn't have the foggiest idea what he implied and I didn't mind. He gave me the cash and I drove back to the inn Haley and I lived in. Yet a couple of days some other time, when I went to Haley's kindergarten to get her, they let me know her mother and granddad had gotten her. Generally my blood ran cold. A couple of moments later my cell blared with a message from my father. It read, "Come to my home, we really want to talk." I would have rather not gone, yet I needed to ensure Haley was protected. When I showed up, father was holding my girl at his lap. She was resting and well, he said, "So my child, the tables have turned. I won't play your games any longer. Your little girl and Lexi will live far away from you. They'll be protected the same length as you. Don't distribute any of the accounts I asked and argued. Don't take my girl, I need to live with her. I'll give you back $1 million on the off chance that you'll just leave me alone with her." Yet my father said, "You're fortunate she's as yet alive, and since I'm feeling liberal I'll allow you to see your girl once per year." I took a gander at my dozing kid. She was so lovely I needed to hold her tight and never let go. However, I realized I had no way out, so I returned to my inn. I understood I had $1 million and pretty much every opportunity on the planet. Life wasn't really awful despite the fact that I missed Haley like insane. That is the reason over the course of the following couple of months I was sorry again and again to my father, trusting he'd alter his perspective. However, he wouldn't. Since I didn't see Haley frequently, she scarcely knew who I was. The point at which I visited her once per year, I took loads of photographs of her while we were together, yet she generally looked miserable and never called me father. Seeing her like that made me extremely upset. She merited better. I was frantic to follow through with something, but since I was unable to utilize the accounts I had, I didn't have the foggiest idea what. The more I pondered it, the main arrangement I could imagine was in the event that my father passed on. Now I'm not saying I arranged his demise. He was constantly encircled by protectors, folks who'd been in the military. I wouldn't have a potential for success against them. Yet on one occasion my father was killed. Obviously it had nothing to do with me, except for it tackled every one of my concerns. I got my little girl back and acquired all my father's cash. The one in particular who was left with nothing was Lexi. She came to see me and beseeched me to give her some cash. I asked her for what valid reason would it be advisable for me I give cash to somebody who took from me. She answered, "In light of the fact that your father removed all my cash from me and I'm the mother of your kid." Wow. In the end, we concurred I'd pay her a little recompense as long as Haley lived with me. I disdain giving cash to a self-centered lady like her, yet basically I have my girl back, and that is the only thing that is in any way important to me. Please like and subscribe to our channel for more stories.